Good evening. My name is Marilyn Holifield. I'm here on behalf of the Miami Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora. We call it Miami MoCAAD. I am so thrilled to be here with T. Eliott Mansa.
I'm happy to be here as well. Happy about your presence in Miami. It's desperately needed to have a place to express the culture across the diaspora. I'm glad that you allowed me to take part in this discussion.
I had read about T. Eliott, but he came alive to me when he gave us the honor of participating in Miami MoCAAD's first pop-up exhibit, Reconstructing Identity, an exploration of identity through art practice. When I met T. Eliott and saw his beautiful and thoughtful work, I was blown away. Can you tell us what it meant to participate in Reconstructing Identity, which was curated by our own Donna Marie Baptiste?
Well, I realized that the exhibit easily could have been filled with these New York artists or artists from outside of the States, But I really appreciate that there was a way to not only highlight artists that are in Miami, but realize these artists represent the world because the diversity amongst African people spread across the Caribbean, just across the world, that you have something very unique and tightly knit, but also broad and expansive. For me, as I've been looking at the work, I realized that there are these threads that connect Black art. There was art in every nook and cranny of the space, and it didn't feel crowded, it felt expansive. So I was honored to be a part of
it. And we talked about the African diaspora. You mentioned the connections that you felt and you saw in this Reconstructing Identity exhibit. What does the African diaspora mean to you?
For me, I think it means that wherever you are, Africa is there, So people in Trinidad, their Africa is Trinidad. People in Opa-locka, their Africa is Opa-locka. So everywhere we're gonna get together on the weekends and party. Everywhere we're gonna pour a libation to the ancestors. Everywhere we go, there are gonna be these churches where we dance and call the Holy Spirit down and allow us to speak in tongues and prophesy. These are things that connect African people all over the world. And we feel this pride in nation. We feel this pride in specificity. And I think that's valid as well. But we have to realize that these things that we feel, oh, this is Miami culture, this is Jamaican culture, this is Haitian culture, that there are threads and seeds that we carry over from Africa. And I think just like that exhibit allowed us to come together, I think it would be advantageous for Black people across the world to connect, especially in the 21st century where we have access to the world in our phones and in our purses, in our pockets. We can just reach out to anyone across the world. So to me, that is a part of my diaspora condition and perspective.
And it's so interesting that when you think about it, the African diaspora had its roots in the forcible removal of Africans from the continent for enslavement in the New World, for enslavement in your North and South America and the Caribbean. And as a result of this forcible removal of Africans from Africa, we have Black people scattered all over the world. And it's that creative Black people, even though we started out centuries ago in Africa, but here today, in our contemporary 21st century world, we are in Europe, we are in North America, the United States, we're in Latin America, we're in the Caribbean, and we're in, frankly, countries all over the world. And that's what Miami MoCAAD is trying to bring to the forefront, that Black people are global people, and that the art of Black people is in fact global. Now, getting closer to home, I understand that you were born and raised in Miami. Tell us about your personal story.
I mean, I'm proud to be a product of the Miami-Dade County school system. And as you may know, Miami didn't do forced busing. Miami created a magnet school program, magnet school system, where rather than forced busing, they would have these programs that were often in Black neighborhoods, and they would bus people in from all over the county. So as early as maybe 4th grade or 3rd grade, I began taking part in these magnet programs. So a few days a week, we would go to Rainbow Park Elementary, and we would study art, and we would meet with kids from all different sides of the county, all different cultures, nationalities. And I did that through middle school, into high school at the New World School of the Arts. And it gave me, by the time I graduated high school, I had this expansive education and development of my skills as an artist that I could have just ended it there. But we were we were allowed, and it was almost not even a choice of whether or not we were going to go on to college. So just recently, I graduated from Hunter College in New York.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd had a big gap where first, there's a point where I'm working, I realized that there was this space that I wasn't applying, and I needed to get back into art making. So for a few years, I was in showing and beginning to work, but I really felt like there was something else I needed to develop myself, because I started to feel closed off as an artist, and I needed to grow. So I attended grad school. But I really think that, New Orleans School of the Arts for a long time has been the preeminent #1 art program in the nation. So if you look at the Miami art scene, a lot of us have come out of it. And I think we always talk about Art Basel as a watershed moment in the expansiveness of Miami as a world-class art city. But I think we can't ignore the work that the school system, that Miami-Dade College and New World School of the Arts has created tons of local talent, and I'm just one of many that has come through this process.
Well, we at Miami MoCAAD were thrilled that you and other local artists representing the diaspora agreed to participate in our first exhibit. You probably didn't know very much about Miami MoCAAD. You probably didn't know that there has been this group of committed volunteers who have been working for 4 or 5 years to establish a world-class museum based right here in Miami to be dedicated to contemporary art of the African diaspora. We want to bring to the world stage, but we also want to bring to the local stage art of Africans, art of people of African descent, and showcase their art, showcase the artists, and showcase the art-making processes. So many people don't remember that it was only 50 years ago that Black students around the country protested to demand that the academic and art history canons expand to include Black history and Black art and culture. It was only 50 years ago that Black studies programs that people take for granted today were demanded for, and it might not be readily apparent, but I was one of those students who protested for Black studies, and in connecting my own personal dots, maybe that's one reason why I have this passion to be a part of this group that's working to create a premier world-class museum right here in Miami that's dedicated to the art of the African diaspora. How do you feel about that?
I think it's great. Like I said before, I think, especially with Reconstructing Identity, it was almost like a family reunion, because there might be shows where two of us show together, and another two of us show in this show, another two in this show, but never as a holistic view, a little snapshot of the Black art world in Miami. And it's not something that is specifically for one cultural group. It's something that goes across the diaspora. So I was proud to take part in that. And I'm also proud to see that Miami is paying attention to the diaspora, and that we're creating a voice where our work can be celebrated, and that it's not something that is going to not be accessible to the community. It's something that the community is involved in from the ground up, and that it will be available, that there will be programs to interact with the community, so that the community feels that it's their museum. And I think, from what I can tell, I think there's going to be people even in other cities that feel like this is their museum.
And why do you feel that even people in other cities will feel that the Miami MoCAAD Museum would be their museum?
Because I think because of the vision. Any time I've spoken with you, I am aware of your vision for the museum, that your authentic love of Black people, and I see other things where artists are having the chance to come into Miami and seeing that we're committed to the community. We're committed to presenting the work of the African diaspora. And I think that as an artist, I understand that not only is there a drive from Black artists to find homes, to find places for them to be accepted, but I also feel like collectors and people that are buying and consuming the culture also have a interest in seeing what the museum has to offer. So I think as we look at places like the Studio Museum, these are museums that are connected across the world, and I definitely see the Miami MoCAAD as in this orbit with these major African Diaspora museums across the country.
Oh, now let's change and focus on you just a little bit.
Right.
I understand that you just won a prize. Could you tell us about that?
Okay. Well, Eliott Arts has, for the past 2 years, it's a new project, fairly new project. So they have gathered $500,000 to develop projects by artists. There were 500 applications for these awards, and they went that down to, I think, 39 artists. So that's a great task, trying to figure out, who's going to get it. And what this project does is that it solicits proposals for different art projects, and they want you to be detailed about it, but they don't ask you to present a budget. So they look at the project and try to figure out what do you need to get this project done. And for me, the project that I needed to get done is a solo exhibit at LNS Gallery. And it's one of those things that when you have a solo exhibit or have an exhibit, you want to not just fill the gallery, you want to have enough work so that you can pick the best work. If you're showing 10 works, you don't make 10 works. So for me, especially using the materials I use, I can't just get a roll of canvas and paint away on this canvas. I need things, I need all of these supplies. So for me, it allowed me to not worry as much about how I'm gonna pay, for this exhibit. And it was just great to take part in a ceremony, take part in a project where all of my peers are gathered in one room, and that we're talking about 40 different world-class projects that are happening due to Eliott Art. So I really appreciate them. And we've got more things coming that, keep up with us online, and you'll see that we're gonna keep presenting programming as these projects happen.
When is your solo exhibit at LNS Gallery?
Great question. That's going to be in April of 2020. And for me, it feels like next week. It's something that, I carry around these ideas in my head. So, every day I'm traveling to and fro, and I'm thinking about this exhibit. So I really want this to be my christening, my coming out party, to express a fully developed voice to Miami. And I hope that it's received well.
Well, I love connecting the dots that you're involved with Eliott.
Mm-hmm.
And Eliott has created an opportunity for you to give this fantastic solo exhibit at LNS Gallery. What is your relationship, or how did you become involved with LNS Gallery, which is right here in Miami?
Well, this goes back a few years. My first solo show in Miami was in a small space that was run by Sinue Vega, and it was a space that was right on the side of a restaurant that was on, I think, 69th and Biscayne. and this was a restaurant that Sinaway owned. And this was just this small show, but it was a show that we were reviewed in the Miami Times. And we started, I think, then the show came by, and people came by, and, you know, sometimes they'd come by and the gallery was closed, sometimes, you know, it was just, you know, this thing where there was a demand that we really didn't know. So,
well, thank God for the Miami Times.
Absolutely.
Thank God for the Black press and the Miami Times.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is that Sergio saw this show.
Now, who's Sergio?
Sergio Cernuda and his wife Luisa, they are the owners of LNS Gallery. And they saw this show, this is years ago. So they've been aware of my work, and they reached out to me. I was still in grad school, and I said, well, you're gonna have to give me a chance to do this work of figuring out what I'm gonna do. And that once I graduate, I'm gonna be the first to talk to you. So as it happened, I came back to Miami, and
you came back from Hunter College?
yeah, I came back from Hunter College, came back to Miami. And also, they came out to New York to talk to me, because they had flown in for the New York Art Fairs. And I really respected the fact that they came in person to talk to me. It could have been a phone call, but while they were in town, we got together over lunch, and we talked about our vision for what we wanted to do together as a gallery and as an artist. And our relationship has been wonderful. They're doing great work on my behalf. And I think right now, you know, we've been working together for almost a year, and we're seeing this momentum happening that the work with Oola Arts is representative of this momentum. And actually, our work with you in Overtown, this was the very my first exhibit after moving to Miami. And since then, there's been this momentum. So I'm glad that it's something that the work has come first, and the work has allowed these other opportunities.
Well, Miami MoCAAD is grateful for your work, and we're grateful for Donna Marie Baptiste having the eye to see your work. And we are grateful for the opportunity to be in a position to showcase the magnificent genius of artists of the diaspora who live right here in Miami. And we'll also be showcasing artists from other places in the country and other places in the world. But it's so wonderful to be able to showcase magnificent art of artists like you who were born, raised, and went to school in Miami. That's so heartwarming, and I really love the fact that we've been able to connect the dots that involve your art making, your education here in Miami, your education in New York and Hunter, your involvement with Oola, your involvement with LNS Gallery, but your involvement with Miami MoCAAD. We love it.
Yes, thank you. I mean, it's been a great experience, and you know, it's one of those things where even had we not shown together, I would have been trying to figure out, you know, how can I help this museum in any way possible, because it represents us, you know. So.
But why is it important to you? Or why do you see it as being important for Miami MoCAAD to be successful?
Well, for me, I think that this is something that is almost specifically something that happens in the Black community, right? Is that no one's ever, I'm never to Eliott Mansa, you know. I carry this responsibility of representing the race, you know, and no one else, everyone else gets to be mediocre, you know, and that's enough. They're rich, they've got the right connection, they're from the right families, and they just get by. Black people aren't allowed that. So when we are doing work like this, it has to be of a standard so that it represents who we are on a global scale. And I think you can't sit back and you can't just let you do all of the work, you know. So, you know, I don't know all of what, I mean, I'm sure there's tons of work that goes into making this happen. And we're watching these small challenges and these small achievements happening as the museum moves towards being a physical space. But I'm sure this has been something that's been a seed, been an idea that you have had this whole time.
To hear you talk is really, really, really inspiring, because Miami MoCAAD lives and breathes to serve artists, to serve the community, but also to be a gift to the world. And it can be a gift to the world, it can be a gift to our community, because we will inspire curiosity, we will inspire appreciation for the art, the artists, and the art-making processes of the Black African diaspora. I would be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to Jumani and Lauren of LNS Gallery, LNS Contemporary, for being magnificent hosts. We're surrounded by absolutely stunning art.
Absolutely.
And what LNS is doing by bringing this gallery, or bringing their gallery to Little Haiti, and staking out a claim of ownership of a space that is dedicated to Black art of the African diaspora. We are thankful for what LNS is doing, and we're thankful that they allowed us to have this occasion here this evening. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't end before we gave an appropriate acknowledgement of our appreciation. Now, I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, and a long, long time ago. And when I grew up in the backyard of Florida University and considered myself a baby rat because I went to Florida A&M demonstration school from nursery school, from when I was, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years old, throwing sand in the sandbox. But what Florida A&M did was give me an appreciation for Black talent in the arts. Black theater, Black artists, Black dancers, Black intellectuals, Black lawyers, and maybe somewhere in my soul is that passion that was generated, that appreciation that was generated by a historically Black university like Florida A&M that engaged in outreach. My hope is that Miami MoCAAD will be able to engage in outreach in the community that will allow people, all over Miami, to feel that Miami MoCAAD is their home. And I'm wondering how you would envision an artist in residence program as being part of our vision of bringing in artists from the diaspora to be here in Miami, but being located in Overtown.
Right.
What would you say about that?
Well, you know, Overtown has a rich history as far as the arts. Overtown is viewed as the Black Broadway, filled with theaters, bringing world-class talent, and you know, it's great to find a link to that great history that is there in the great community of people there. And earlier we talked about how are people throughout the world, and specifically throughout the country, how do artists begin to feel that the museum is theirs? And a part of that is the concept of a studio residency. And no matter who you are, as an artist, there's times where you need a space. And for me, it's this project that I'm working on is happening in April. So a lot of times these residencies, people have projects, but they need a space to work. And we're here in Miami, and we take it for granted. But you know, when people are in Colorado, people are in New York, people are in Boston, you know, would you rather be in Boston in the winter, or would you be in Miami? You know, so I think it's a great opportunity for people to have a stake in the museum, and have a stake in the community, and bring the things to the community, but also have the community give as far as being tied to the history, being tied to the wonderful people and the wonderful spirit that Overtown has. And we can connect these artists to this larger engagement. And I think it's just wonderful because we want to create something in Miami that is a world-class destination.
World-class destination, and a world-class destination that is a home to our community, but also a gift to the world.
Right.
And a world-class destination that prompts people, especially people of the African diaspora, to feel as if they have to make a pilgrimage to Miami, that they haven't done it all, that their bucket list is not complete unless they've made a trip to Miami. They've made a trip to Miami MoCAAD. And I think that if we do our job the right way, we'll be able to create that sense that the world wants to come to Miami. Not only for Miami beaches,
Right.
but also for Miami MoCAAD. What do you think about that?
It's great. You know, I'm glad to be a part of the groundswell of this movement. I really appreciate it.
Last night something happened in Overtown that was a milestone for Miami MoCAAD. Last night at the Southeast Overtown Park West Community Redevelopment Agency meeting, the chairman, Mr. Hardiman, Commissioners Ken Russell, and Commissioner Willie Gord voted unanimously to pass a resolution expressing support for the development of Miami MoCAAD within the Southeast Overtown Park West Community Redevelopment Agency District. That was a night that makes it real that Miami MoCAAD will have a home in Overtown, and We are moving forward, and we're very excited about this partnership with the Southeast Overtown Park West CRA. And I think as you were talking about the residency program, having an artist in residency program right there in Overtown, next to Phyllis, or in the neighborhood of Phyllis Wheatley Elementary School, in the neighborhood of Paul Lawrence Dunbar Elementary School, in the neighborhood of Booker T. Washington High School, that will allow unlimited opportunities for artists from Miami who participate in the residency program and artists from the diaspora who participate in the residency program to interact with our students and to interact with our community in a wonderful, wonderful way. Can you imagine yourself being in residency right there in Overtown and feeling the spirit and the history of Overtown as a 21st century artist?
Just an amazing idea.
What would that mean to you?
I mean, I think the idea that, you know, if I get up and go through a bike ride, that I can walk the same grounds that, you know, Duke Ellington and Sarah Vaughan and all these entertainers have walked, and also get a feel, because I think there's this black life that happens, and oftentimes we feel this support of this wider mainstream group of collectors and this wider art world. But you know, the reality is that the community provides the life. It provides the conceptual space that the work is made in. So to be in Overtown and to be working in the space, that means I can hear the sounds of Overtown. I can smell the cooking in the neighborhoods. The kids are gonna run by, you know, as I come and as I leave, and all the time in between. So I think that's a great opportunity and a great chance to have a conversation and have an exchange of energy between the artists, with the museum, and with the community, kind of having that triangulation between the three of those.
Some people out there might be saying, well, how can we help Miami MoCAAD? How can I get involved? It's easy. You're already involved by tuning in. But get your network to follow Miami MoCAAD on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Get your network to subscribe to the Miami MoCAAD email group. All you have to do is go to the internet and plug in MiamiMoCAAD.com. When you plug in MiamiMoCAAD.com, you'll see a video from our opening reception from Reconstructing Identity. You'll see news articles that cover Reconstructing Identity. You'll see our upcoming events. You'll see that we are looking forward to Give Miami-Dade. And then you'll see how you can join the Miami MoCAAD subscription and sign up. More than anything, we want to know that you are with us every step of the way in this journey. We would love for you to give us your thoughts and to share with us your views and your feelings about having a world-class museum dedicated to the art of the African diaspora right here in Miami, right here in Overtown, where it can be a home to the museum and where the museum can be a home to Overtown. I wonder sometimes whether Miami is ready for Miami MoCAAD. And every time I wonder and I pause and I raise that question, I get inspired by the responses of people who say, we need Miami MoCAAD. It will make a tremendous difference to Miami. It's a different idea. It's a different concept. It has a place in Miami. But we need you to join the Miami MoCAAD movement, as T. Eliott was calling it, and join our email group. Give us your thoughts. Give us your reactions. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us even on LinkedIn and Twitter. And be a part of the Miami MoCAAD family. I wonder if you have any questions for me.
One question I would ask is, how important is it to the museum to find a voice for local Miami artists while looking to a wider diaspora group of art? How do you find the balance between the local and the international?
That's a wonderful question, and I love the fact that our very first pop-up exhibit included 11 artists, all of whom are based in South Florida. One just moved to Tampa, but we'll still claim her as South Florida. And one of the things that exhibit did was to verify that there is high quality artwork, art making going on right in Miami. I think Miami MoCAAD will try to figure out a way to be inclusive of local artists from the very beginning. In fact, our very beginning has been an embrace of local artists. As we reach out into the world and into the nation, into the state, we hope to maintain that balance of always being sensitive, always being inclusive of the artists who are right here in Miami. And as New World and other institutions locally continue to produce artists who are making wonderful art, that makes it easy.
Yeah.
It's not as if you have to go searching with a microscope to find artists who are right here in Miami creating wonderful art. It's right here under our nose, and we've already proven that. So I don't view that as something that's hard to do. I view that as part of our mission, that our mission speaks to Miami and our mission speaks to the world. And I think it will be part of our DNA, as you've seen from the very beginning.
Wonderful.
Now, I can't say that everybody's always going to be happy, but the intention is there. The goodwill is there, and the appreciation is there. I appreciate when I saw the art of local artists in Reconstructing Identity, I was blown away. The nearly 300 people who were there for our opening reception, they were all blown away by this incredible art. There were paintings, there was ceramics, there was sculpture, there was art that was to die for. And I believe that Miami MoCAAD can be instrumental and work in partnership with organizations with other museums in town as well as organizations like Eliott and Fountainhead and other organizations who are promoting and giving sustenance and a home to local artists as well as artists outside of Miami. I think Miami, with Reconstructing Identity, I think we prove to ourselves, but also to Miami, that there are wonderful artists of the African diaspora right here in Miami, and you are so correct. They need a voice. I would hope that, as we were talking earlier, I would hope that we would be able to have conversations with local artists and get their views and get their sense of what is the type of residency that would really inspire them, that would really be supportive of their efforts to create magnificent art. And how is it that they would see the value of interacting with artists from the globe, but also even within our community.
Right.
There may be artists in our community that are creating great art, but you don't even know them.
Right.
And how can we create a context where we get to know each other here, but we also get to know each other outside of Miami?
And I think something great to see is that even as we talk about the local versus the international, it was great to see that Miami is an international city and that we're dealing with Black people from all over the world, and these are people that are here, but the world is here.
Absolutely. Wonderful. One of the things that I believe that Miami MoCAAD can do in a very unique way is to use art of the African diaspora to connect people within the African diaspora as well as people outside of the African diaspora, because the African diaspora, as I mentioned before, was instrumental to the development of the entire Western world. It was instrumental to the development of the immense wealth on the backs of our ancestors who were enslaved here, and in Latin America, and in Europe, and in North America, and in Canada. We are integral to the development of the Western world. And our art story is an important part of the development of art in the Western world. Until the late 1960s, our art story was not included.
Right.
We have centuries to catch up. Centuries of exclusion that we have to account for. And centuries of exclusion that give inspiration for artists of the 21st century to imagine history in new ways through their art. Tell us about some of your art that deals with contemporary issues.
Well, a lot of the work that I've been dealing with, or issues I've been dealing with in the work, is, along with everyone else, this movement for Black lives is, when Trayvon Martin was killed, Trayvon Martin is a young man who's from Miami Gardens, and that's the neighborhood that I grew up in. So that his loss was something that hit close to home. And when that happened, it was a singular thing, but I had no idea that this loss of these young people was something that we were going to have to deal with on a weekly basis. I remember it was happening back to back, and there were times when it would happen on a weekend, and then by Wednesday, someone else was killed, and there just wasn't enough room in the news cycle for their names to be heard. And, you know, this stuff was happening, and I felt like, what does it mean to be an artist in the era for the movement for Black lives? You know, what can I do as an artist? And it questioned me, the efficacy, I questioned the efficacy of political artwork. Like, what do brushes and canvas and paint, like, what do these things do for people on the ground? So, you know, as I said earlier, I traveled to Havana, I traveled to Benin, and I look towards art making that is made to protect. And that's something that I would aspire to in my work. Like, how do I not just memorialize people that have been lost to state violence, but how do I think about protection? And I think as I look at the work, and I look at work from across the diaspora, I see that not only are people thinking of art in a ritual manner, but people are using objects from the industrial world. And as African people, our labor is gone to develop capital and to finance the Industrial Revolution. And we're taking the stuff, we're taking the auto parts, we're taking the tires, we're taking the objects that are donated to the third world. We're taking all this stuff and we're repurposing it. And I think that's a part of what I want to see, is that as I take all of these objects and I find new meaning for it, I want people to see that they can take control of the things that are at their, you know, look at the world and take what you need and repurpose it and find a way to think about new ways of, we talk about restorative justice. And in America, we're gonna have to figure out new ways to deal with justice rather than depending on incarceration, because people are losing their rights, people aren't allowed housing, they aren't allowed employment, and honestly, we can't afford to we need to be educating our children. We don't need to be spending this money and locking people away for the rest of their lives. So we need imagination. To me, the art world represents imagination. So how do we, I think, we need the people that look at art to think of ways that they can reimagine their world. And that's something that I aspire to with my work.
Fantastic. It's been wonderful exchanging conversation with you, T. Eliott.
It's been wonderful.
And I hope all of you out there have enjoyed getting to know T. Eliott Mansa and enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about Miami MoCAAD. Because Miami MoCAAD, here we come. Good night.